These are Twinkies. They're golden sponge cakes with creamy filling on the inside. Delicious, right? Some of you are like, Twinkies, I miss them. Well, some of you thought you would never see them again, but they're actually coming back this summer. Yes, I know, everyone's excited. Well, I'm not that surprised they're coming back because for whatever reason, the Twinkie is just really special to this country. They were even put in the National Millennium Time Capsule. Now, I can't tell you why Twinkies are so popular or why people like to eat them so much, but I can tell you why I self-proclaim myself as one of them. I am a Twinkie. I am yellow on the outside and white on the inside. Used in this racial context, the word Twinkie is actually quite negative. It's a derogatory term that means an Asian person acts white, which is a race they are not a part of and should not be a part of. I recognize the word Twinkie is offensive because it describes Asian people as yellow and also has a negative implication. But I'm personally not offended by the word Twinkie because it doesn't bother me when people think that I act white. I actually see the word Twinkie as an accurate, visually descriptive way to describe my racial identity. After all, I look pretty Asian, but my parents are Caucasian. My family is white. Their race differs from my own. My exterior is like a yellow sponge cake, soaking in the culture that surrounds me. My interior is white, like the cream that makes a Twinkie distinct and full of flavor, but is never actually seen from the outside. Both parts never mix and block each other from being one solid color. In other words, my yellow body gets in the way of my white experience. At the same time, my white inside does not allow me to be fully yellow. Words like minority and oppression describe my Asian body. Privilege and patriarchy describe my white inside. Now, most people recognize that race isn't biological. It's just this social construct that we've created. But race still plays a significant part in our self-concepts and concepts of other people because we live in such a race-conscious society. After all, almost every survey we take has the nice race box to check. It's almost metaphorical. By checking a box, you are being put into a box. You're marking where you come from and where you stand in society. So what box do I check? Well, I check the Asian box, probably fit better in the Caucasian or white box, but I'm Korean. So perhaps I should just check other, which isn't recognizing anything. I am a Korean adoptee, one of many adoptees around the world. And so I can't speak for any other adoptee or person of color, but I can share my story. Well, I don't believe that myself or other people are just made up of one identity. We have multiple identities. We're coworkers, friends, brothers and sisters, and we're constantly changing and performing these identities based on different situations we're in. Well, I perform differently as an employee than I do as a brother. A sister, because I'm a sister, not a brother. And we probably all do that. Well, I also believe that we perform identities of gender and race. Unlike ethnicity, which is an internal affiliation with a nation, culture, or group, race is largely only determined by what somebody looks like. Well, I perform race in a society that assumes that race signifies culture. When I was 4 months old, I flew from Seoul, South Korea to Seattle, Washington, and was united with my family, the Bacons. And no, we're not related to Kevin. Sorry to disappoint. I know some of you really wanted to know from reading the biography. So I am Korean by blood, but I'm German, Swiss, English, Danish, and Scottish by family. These parts of me create my Twinkie status. My family is white, and they're just accepted as US American. I don't feel any different from them, but people assume that I belong to a different or additional culture. I'm Asian, my family is white, and therefore I perform two racial identities, white and Asian. As a child, I didn't see myself as Asian because I didn't know what it was yet. And I never actually consciously thought that I looked different from my family or my white friends, but other people would point out my difference. My most distinct memory of this was in kindergarten. At recess, a group of 4 to 5 boys came and they shoved me against a wall, and they surrounded me so that I couldn't escape. They yelled, "You have a round face. You have a round face. You have a round face," over and over again. I cried, not because they shoved me, but because I did have a round face. I was hurt because they pointed out my physical difference, like I was a freak, ugly and unnatural. I would never look like them. I do not feel different from my white peers until I cannot perform like them. My inability to perform white happens when I go places with my family and people don't believe that we're related. This gets a little awkward when I go places with my brothers. And I've received some weird looks too when I hang out with my dad as well, which is even more awkward. Yeah. My inability to perform white also happens when I sit on a bus and get asked if I'm a tourist. One man actually told me that I speak English really well. Yeah. And I actually took that as a compliment. Yeah. No one has ever told me that before. Like, thank you. I do speak English well. Like, brush the shoulder, right? Well, that man and other people look at me and they don't see white. They don't assume that I have a white family. They see Asian. They assume I have Asian parents and can speak a different language. Now, I'm not offended by this at all, but my inability to perform Asian should not be cause for guilt or shame, as it often is. People expect me to be Asian, and I do not meet their expectations. I have been asked if I can make orange chicken and kimchi, and I probably could, but I never have. And sometimes when I go to Asian restaurants, I will ask for a fork because chopsticks are just so hard for me to use sometimes. And I have received really dirty looks for that. I have. One waitress even looked at me and she said, "I thought you were the Asian one." And she did it just like that, like with the hip and everything. Well, my knowledge of Korean culture comes from the internet. I cannot pronounce my Korean name. I am whitewashed. I am looked down upon. I am a Twinkie that cannot be fully Asian, whatever being Asian even means. But I still try to make my Asian performances believable. Well, I get my knowledge of what it means to be Asian through stereotypes and Asian aesthetics. So getting good grades in school always made me feel like a more legitimate Asian person. Yes, got the A in science, got the A in math. I am a good Asian. We are good. And sometimes when I get my bangs cut across my forehead like this, a lot of people are just like, "Wow, Gina, you look really Asian." Like I didn't look Asian before. I don't know, it's magical, bangs. And one time, I borrowed one of my brother's cars that looks like this. Yes. So I borrowed my brother's car, my brother is white, just throwing that out there again to reiterate. And I'm not gonna lie, driving this car around town made me feel more Asian. It did. And I even wanted to drive past other Asian people and be like, "Hey, look at me, I can be Asian too, look at my car." I know it sounds ridiculous, but I perform Asian by creating an appearance and embracing stereotypes. Now, I don't encourage the practice of embracing stereotypes, but other people's expectations of me, which are often stereotypical, have caused me to perform an identity that I just don't know much about. I try to perform white because I don't feel any different from my family. I perform Asian because I'm Korean and people have all these assumptions about me. Neither performance is accepted. I look too Asian to be white, but I don't act Asian enough to be Asian. My inability to be one or the other only solidifies my position as both. I was born in South Korea and am proud of my heritage. I was raised in the United States and am proud of my white family, who comes from Germany, England, Scotland, Switzerland, and Denmark. There's a lot of countries out there. I am a Twinkie, and I embrace this concept. I don't feel shame when people tell me that I'm whitewashed. I am proud of being a Twinkie. You know, we have multiple identities, and we don't have to fit into just one. We can embody and embrace the identities that we choose and not what other people force us into. And when people tell us that we can't do that or shouldn't do that, then let's use those opportunities to teach them and raise awareness. I've started to use my awkward encounters as teachable moments or diversity lessons on the fly. So I get asked where I'm from a lot. And if I say Washington State, then people will be like, oh, cool, but like, where are you really from? And knowing what they're getting at, I will say Korea. But that's only acknowledging one of my origins. It's cutting out my family and also the fact that I actually am from Washington. So now I say, I really am from Washington. This is a true statement. I am not lying to you. And I was born in South Korea. Now I'm recognizing my family and blood origins. I've also actually asked several white people where they're really from, too. And I always get really confused reactions like, didn't you just ask me that? Until I say, you know, like, where's your heritage? Where do your ancestors come from? And then they get it. I'll use one conversation I had as an example. I asked a white man where he's really from, and eventually he was like, oh, yeah, well, my family comes from Germany. So I said, oh, great, so you speak German. And he looked at me and he was like, no, why would I speak German? It's interesting because Germany is where his ancestors came from. But to him, and probably everyone else, it's perfectly okay that he doesn't speak German because he grew up here in the United States. So why is it when I say that I'm from Korea, the questions I get asked are, you don't speak Korean? That's weird. And you've never even tried to learn? Geez, isn't that shameful? I have been shamed a lot for not speaking Korean. But should I feel ashamed? I speak the language of my family and of the place that I live. So just as it's okay for the white German guy not to speak German, I think that it's okay that I don't speak Korean. A lot of people have a difficult time accepting my yellow outside and white inside together as a package. But I hope through giving my twinkified body a voice, we can continue to challenge the assumptions and expectations that we put on people based on their skin color. We have multiple identities, and we don't always fit into the identity that we look like. I am a Twinkie, and not everyone's going to like this or accept it. But for those of us who get put into boxes, which is basically all of us, let's use those opportunities that we have. Because we get put into these boxes, race, gender, sexuality, religion, all these things. But we have opportunities in our day-to-day lives to make a difference and to challenge other people's perceptions of us and of the boxes that they're trying to fit us into. We're all essentially walking diversity lessons. So let's go start teaching.